Hi everyone, it's Will and welcome back to the channel. I was planning on making another video, which is still happening, it's just taking a little bit longer to work on. But seeing how insane the F-15E is right now, I had to play it a bit and make this. Originally, it had the same 220 engines as the F-15C on the first dev server, with the Israeli F-15I having the 229s. Enough people complained about it that the devs decided to give the F-15E the 229s as well, which was a massive performance increase. For all intents and purposes for this video, the F-15E and I are pretty much the exact same. The only differences are that the F-15I is about 150 kilograms heavier and has 120 more countermeasures for a total of 360 instead of the F-15E's 240. The F-15I also lacks the Mavericks that the F-15E gives, but other than that, nothing else is different. Now there's a few different things I want to mention real quick that are new. The first being that throughout the video you'll see a missile evasion text pop up, which just shows that you've avoided a missile that had previously been targeting you. It seems like this pops up when the missile runs out of battery and explodes, since the message pops up well after you evade them. The second thing you may notice is that the spotting system is now worse than ever. I'm not sure if it's intentional or not yet, and I and others are still waiting to hear back, but now there are times when enemies aren't even spotted within a few kilometers. For most of the match, you won't even have a single enemy spotted, versus before when you would have most of the enemy team spotted throughout the match, unless one of them was in space in the corner of the map. And at one point in the video, you'll see me getting jump scared by a 9M, since I just didn't see the enemy while going back to my airfield. Now for the F-15E, there's really no reason for you to use the F-15C anymore, since the F-15E is just better at everything. Obviously it's going to be better at taking out ground targets, whether that's in ground RB or air RB or sim. And I'll probably have a lot of fun later with it in sim, being able to take out a full ground battle in just one pass, and I'll probably make a video on that too. The F-15E, even just in terms of its air-to-air capabilities and performance, is crazy. The F-15C was already one of the best platforms at top tier, and now with the Strike Eagle being as good as it is, there's really no reason to play the F-15C. It gets the same AIM-9Ms, and instead of the AIM-120A, it gets the AIM-120B, which in terms of War Thunder are functionally the same. In real life, the only real differences was the electronics, so that the software on the 120B could be flashed, versus the 120A where you needed to replace the internals to update it. While the F-15E is heavier than the F-15C, the new engines more than make up for that. Its flight performance is just plain better, and it can even go faster than Mach 2 even with a full ordnance load. But this ability to accelerate so well and easily be able to reach Mach 1.5 or even Mach 2 in a normal air beam match means that you can launch your missiles at way higher speeds, which gives them a much better range and also just cuts way down on their time to target. This means that they could reach their target before the enemy has time to evade by notching or any other way, when they would normally have been able to otherwise. I also got a few kills in rear aspect with AMRAAMs that were a lot easier to get from further away with my launch speed. And just in general, you were able to outrun enemies. The F-15C also already had great flight performance and could dogfight very well, at least on the rare occasions that they happened, but now it's just so much easier. The only issue I've run into with the speed is that it can be harder to evade enemy missiles. When my RWR, which by the way was updated and looks way better now in my opinion, shows that a missile was launched on me, I start turning into the notch. But when you're going close to Mach 2, you can press very hard, so you have to drop throttle and use the air brake to slow down a bit. But as long as you pay attention and manage your speed well, it won't be as much of an issue, just something to think about and pay attention to. The F-15E can also only carry 4 missiles if you're carrying any other ordnance like the GBU-39s on the outer fuselage pylons, but that's really not an issue if you're using it in ground RB or sim solely for striking targets. It also complements the F-16C very well in ground RB, since it's a strike aircraft, so using one won't cause the spawn points of the other to increase. You can carry a total of 20 GBU-39s along with 6 Mavericks. That, alongside 2 9Ms and 2 120s, is a great loadout for sim to attack ground battles, though for ground RB it's probably not the best. Taking 4 GBU-39s, 8 GBU-12s, and 6 Mavs is probably the best option, since you can actually guide the GBU-12s in and just use the 4 GBU-39s to soften up anti-air since they don't usually move from their positions in the spawn. The radar on the F-15E is also great. While it is a slightly different radar from the F-15C, having the AN/APG-70 instead of the AN/APG-63V1, it's essentially the same. Really, the only place it differs is in the fact that it has ground tracking modes, which works for moving targets. So if you're having a tough time finding targets in ground RB or convoys in sim, that's a great option. The ground tracking radar also slaves the targeting pod to it, which makes it way easier to target them as well. This only works if you don't already have the targeting pod locked onto something already, so you are able to drop bombs on a target and still use TWS to find an enemy target to defend yourself. For those of you that care or play sim, the cockpit is also way nicer and more modern. It has a much bigger HUD as well as 3 MFDs that you can change to your liking, and there are a few other screens that are just nice to see. The cockpit overall just seems way more modern than the F-15C. The Strike Eagle also has the same HMD that the F-15C and F-16C has and whatnot. Well, I get that people were upset that the F-15I was getting the 229s when the F-15E originally wasn't. I think it's pretty dumb that the F-15E is just plain better than the F-15C right now. I'll be honest and say I was one of the people who thought the F-15E should get the 229s off the bat. But thinking back on it, it just doesn't make any sense, and there's practically no reason to use the F-15C now. There will be more versions of the F-15E added later on with better weapons and radars, and the new engines could have easily been added to them, leaving the current F-15E with the base 220 engines. Especially seeing as though the C will have at least another variant with better weapons and a much better radar. However, the C never got the 229s, so yes, the E would eventually surpass the C, but I just don't think it makes sense to throw it under the bus so soon. Of course, the E would still be pretty good, being able to carry all the ordnance it can, but the C would still be the clear winner in air-to-air. And again, just like in real life, the EX will come eventually, and that will surpass the C as well. Similar to the F-16C, the F-15EX was designed to be a multi-role fighter, being able to do both CAS and CAP missions extremely well. Whereas the C was the fighter and the E was typically the strike aircraft unless otherwise necessary. The Strike Eagle can and has been used as an air-to-air combat aircraft, but it's typically not used that way. I know I keep repeating it, but it just doesn't make any sense to me that we've only had the F-15C for 4 months now, and it's already been dethroned in-game. Though to be fair, it's not the first time this happened, and I'm sure it won't be the last. Next update, we will almost certainly be getting the F-A-18C, which won't exactly dethrone anything, but it will still provide a great alternative to the F-15C, and the E being a great multi-role aircraft. But starting to get towards the end of the video here, the F-15E is just an all-around great plane. If you were going for the F-15C, I would highly advise you to start going for the F-15E instead. Unless you're in a case where you're almost at the F-15C, then just go for it. You'll still have tons of fun, and I'm sure it'll be way easier to grind out the F-15E using the regular Eagle. If you guys did enjoy this video, please make sure to like and subscribe, and let me know what you'd like to see in the future. I've got some great ideas coming up, but new ones are always great to have.